Howdy, folks. Today I thought we would take a little break from Jack Vance and prove that I read other authors. So we're going to talk about A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. Um, Now, this is a kind of post-apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic science fiction with some fantastical elements. And I think this is a really interesting novel, especially in our current time. Um, just before I get into that, basically it follows this the story of this Catholic abbey um, after a huge nuclear apocalypse. And the abbey is in Utah, in the desert out there, and it goes through three different time periods, um, hundreds of years apart, as civilization kind of recovers and grows itself back after this horrible apocalypse. Um, and it's really fascinating for a number of reasons. One, kind of a through line throughout the entire book is just the um, the role technology plays in our society and civilization is really examined in an extremely meaningful way, I think, in this book. I, I I think it is kind of deeper, so to speak, than a lot of science fiction in that way, in that it really tries to contend with some of these timeless questions about technology and society and technological society and all the all the questions that come out of the complexities therein. So I think just from a basic level, it's a really fascinating read. Kind of seeing this post apocalyptic society depicted, and seeing questions that people in the past have dealt with and that we're currently dealing with, being asked again and again and again, and humanity kind of in some ways never wising up. So I think that's very profound, the kind of deep point this book tries to make in that regard. And I think it's probably, I haven't looked up much discussion on this book, but I think it's probably debated how people view the valence of the book and the ending and all these questions. I think there probably are a lot of people who see it in a very um, kind of pessimistic light, and I might be one of those people, but I'm sure others kind of see the light shining through, so to speak, of positivity in those repeated trials that humanity goes through. So I think that alone is just a really, really fascinating reason to check this book out. But also, it's just a good read. I think the writing has kind of an interesting kind of dry wit to it that almost reminded me of like British humor in a weird roundabout way. Um, and I think that kind of made some of those really heavy topics easier to swallow or easier to um, investigate within a text that is nice to read page by page. Um, there, like I said, are three different time periods, and if I understand correctly, this was actually originally three novellas that were stitched together to create this book. And it's all different characters in each novella. There are, of course, references to um, uh, characters in past novellas in each of the subsequent ones. Um, and there is a continued history of this abbey that is kind of the through line for all of it. But it really got to some places I didn't expect. I had heard this book recommended online, and just to dive into one specific example, in the third novella, it kind of delves into the question of like human mercy. How should I say this? Mercy, euthanasia, and that, of course, is a topic that actually our current technological society is dealing with. So for it to be predicted in this, I believe it's from the 50s. Yeah, 59. So for that kind of foresight that a lot of people look towards in science fiction, I think this is a really successful example of that, where the author clearly saw some of the dilemmas that our society was heading towards, and integrated that into this story, albeit in the far, far future. And that example, I think, hit me the most. It was extremely profound. It really had me, questioning these things in a way you don't in your day-to-day life. So I think as far as a novel or any type of fiction goes, that's very powerful and very successful. I definitely would recommend this one. I read it on, just a few online recommendations, and I think there's somewhat of a resurgence of people talking about this one. So I'd say it's highly recommended. It's very fascinating. Check it out.